never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today here on the channel, we're going to discuss some college football and wrestling. Let's go ahead and start. In the world of professional wrestling, the best entertainment / sport that there is. And I say entertainment / sport because some people call it entertainment and some people call it sports. If you have any thoughts on Monday Night Raw from last night, please feel free to let me know. Hard to believe that Survivor Series is right around the corner. But it is. Of course, back in the day before we had the monthly pay-per-views, and of course now they call them monthly premium live events, you only had 4. And they were Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. And I, for one, would be happy if they went back to doing that. I liked only having one every 3 months because it gave you more time to build up storylines, and I enjoyed that so much more. But then again, I'm old school, so maybe that's why. Any early thoughts on NXT coming up tonight, please feel free to let me know. But if nothing changes this upcoming Saturday, I will be at 1200 Chivers Avenue in Buckhead, Georgia, at the Got to Be Rolling Event Center for Thanksgiving Star Wars for Georgia Championship Wrestling. Doors will open at 6:05 Saturday night, and bell time will be 7 o'clock. Our main event is a bunkhouse rumble match. Come as you are, all weapons are legal. We're also going to see the new television champion, Jay Shaw, put his new TV title on the line in an open challenge. Who will answer that challenge come Saturday night to Georgia Championship Wrestling and find out. We're also going to see Terry Lawler put his Georgia Heavyweight Championship on the line against Alexander Lev. And Jacob Ashworth is going to take on Adrian Hawkins in a one-on-one match. All that and more coming up Saturday night. Doors open at 6:05. Bell time is 7 o'clock. Georgia Championship Wrestling presents Thanksgiving Star Wars. 1200 Chivers Avenue, Buckhead, Georgia, at the Got to Be Rolling Event Center. And in case you have not heard, I'm sure you have, though, from the world of college football, Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher on Sunday, and Mississippi State fired Zach Arnett on Sunday. I think a lot of people caught the Jimbo Fisher news by surprise because A&M won on Saturday. Now, of course, they beat Mississippi State. And it's funny that they play and then the next day both teams fire their coach. But A&M won, and I believe the score was 51-10, so they won in pretty impressive fashion. And normally you don't see a team win a game and then the next day fire their coach, unless it's the last game of the season, then you do. But usually if it's the middle of the season and you fire a coach right then, it's after you lose, not after you win. But I think this just goes to show that they had already made the decision that they were going to fire him, and they wanted to go ahead and do it and get it over with. You know, why prolong it? If we know we're going to fire you, why wait 2 more games? Because if by some chance we win our last 2 games, then we look stupid for firing our coach when we just won our last 3 games of the season. So I think they had already made the decision they were going to fire him. Now, I don't know what route they're going to go, because you would think if they offered Jimbo Fisher the kind of contract he got, that the next coach that comes along, if he's a big-name coach, is going to ask for a contract around about the same numbers. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to pay 2 straight coaches that kind of money. But you can't feel bad for him, because I've talked about it numerous times here on the channel. As long as Jimbo Fisher was at Florida State, the worse they got. The longer he was there, the more the program just went in the toilet. So what in the world made A&M watch Florida State and watch them get progressively worse on and off the field every year he was there, and still call the guy and offer the guy that kind of money? I don't know. He did nothing that warranted that contract, but yet A&M still offered him that contract. So it's their own stupidity, their own foolishness. And I know they want to win. They're one of the richest programs in one of the richest, if not the richest state. And they do nothing. They're always average, but they can never get above average. So they were desperate to hire a coach that they thought could give them a national championship. But what about Jimbo Fisher tells you he's going to give you a national championship? That was their own stupid fault. They should have never done it. Now, I don't know exactly how much is left on Jimbo's contract that they have to pay. I've heard $76 million. I've heard $76.5. I've heard $77.5. I've heard $80. I've heard $85. So it's somewhere north of $75 million that they've got to pay him. But it's their own stupid fault. They'll probably go for a smaller named coach and hope that it works out and they can keep their head above water until they pay the majority of Jimbo's contract and then go after a bigger name coach. But they might go ahead and go after a big name coach. I don't know, but his overall record at A&M was 45-25 in basically 6 years. That's about 7.5 wins a year. Of course, 1 year they had a couple of games get canceled, and they would have been games that A&M would have won. So he averaged about 8 wins a year, which is what Jimbo Fisher does. And I'm a member of a group that is a college football trash talk channel, and all we do is, well, we talk trash about college football. And somebody put on there on Sunday that Jimbo Fisher would never get another big-time job, and I said, yes, he will. It might not be right now. It might be 4 or 5 years down the road. He might have to go coach at a group of 5 school somewhere until he has a few good seasons, and then he leaves and goes back to a Power 5 school. But if Texas A&M was dumb enough to want him, even though he made Florida State consistently worse every year he was there, there's another program out there that's dumb enough to hire him. It will happen. It might not happen tomorrow. It may not be next year, but it will happen. How many times do we see coaches get fired, and then they turn around and get rehired by somebody else. If plenty of other coaches do it, Jimbo Fisher will be next. He might not coach at a big-time school next year, but somewhere down the line, he will be coaching a Power 5 program again. Should he? Absolutely not. Does he deserve it? Absolutely not. But will it happen? Yes, it will. And Zach Arnett, you really can't say much about him. He's only 37 years old, so the guy is still very, very young. His overall record is 5-6, including their bowl game last year. So 4-6 this year. But it was obvious that it was just not going to work. I mean, the program was heading in a downward spiral very, very fast. We know how good Mike Leach was at coaching offense, but their offense this year, instead of getting better as the year went on, it got worse as the year went on, and their defense did too. So when your offense is getting worse and your defense is getting worse, that's not a good sign. So I guess they're going to go ahead and get him out the way and try to find their next head coach. I don't know who it'll be, but Zach Arnett's just 37, so I'm sure his coaching days are not anywhere close to being done. He might not be a head coach again for a while, but he'll be on the sidelines in some capacity, probably again next year. So we already have 2 college football programs that are looking for their next head coach. Any thoughts on that? Please feel free to let me know. And let's go ahead and take a quick look at the new college football AP Top 10. Of course, it comes out on Sundays. And you can compare it to tonight when the new college football playoff poll comes out. Of course, so far in the first 2 weeks of the college football playoff poll, they've had a different number 1 team than the AP poll has. We'll find out tonight whether or not that's still the case or if they will agree on that. But the number 1 team in the AP poll is Georgia, followed by Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Louisville, and Oregon State. So Oregon State, with 2 losses, is still in the top 10. That's because even though they have 2 losses, you have to have top 10 teams. And Penn State was top 10 last week, but they lost. And you don't see a team lose very often that's 9th or 10th and not fall past 10. So somebody has to take up that 10th spot. And I said it for the year started. I think Oregon State's really, really good. I just think their overall record is not going to be really good because they're playing so many other great teams. And when great teams play each other, somebody has to lose. And as good as Oregon State is, they're not as good as Washington. They're not as good as Oregon. I don't think they're as good as a couple of other teams in the Pac-12 that they won't play because not everybody in the Pac-12 plays each other. But just because Oregon State is not as good as Washington or Oregon or a couple other teams in the Pac-12 doesn't mean they're not a great football team. But you can't win every game when you're playing great opponents. Somebody has to lose. And I do think Oregon State, as good as they were last year, and they were a 10-win team last year, they might be just as good, if not better, this year. But their record is not going to be better because of the competition they're playing. You can't play great opponents week in, week out, and win every game. It's just not going to happen. And anybody that ever tells you differently is crazy. Ain't nobody in the history of the world in college football played 12 top 5 teams or 12 top 10 teams. Or in that case, 12 ranked teams. You just don't do it. You play a few great opponents, a few good opponents, and then a few of the terrible, terrible teams. Well, because the Pac-12 is so good, Oregon State really doesn't have a few of those terrible, terrible, terrible teams. Once you get into conference play, pretty much everybody you play is great. And when you do that, you're going to lose. So look at the top 10 in the AP poll and compare it to tonight's college football playoff poll and see about how close they are. They're usually pretty similar with the teams, just in a different order, in a different fashion. But of course, this is the final year. We'll have the college football playoff poll with 4 teams. Starting next year, it'll be the watered down, we go 8-4 and still go to the playoffs. Top 12, as far as the top 12 teams go to the playoffs. We'll still have the college football playoff poll, but it won't just be the top 4 is what matters. It'll be the top 12 is what matters. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I never understood why a set of false teeth is called dentures. They really missed an opportunity to call it substitutes. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.